Good evening, fellow happiness seekers. We're going to continue with another episode exploring the how to be happy solo, how to be happy on your own idea. And I did say yesterday that I would tell you why I felt I was qualified for this. And I've got to be honest, lay all my cards on the table. Believed all the stuff that you learn as a child, that you're going to marry and live happily ever after, that there's a soulmate out there for you, that you should, especially I was raised Catholic, so you only marry once, and if that fails you've got to endure it and grin and bear it for the rest of your life. And let's just say the first marriage could have been better. I guess I don't offend anybody or hurt anybody's feelings, but I probably should have been less passive about how the whole thing came about. But I didn't know. There's a lot of stuff you don't know. You're just told stuff and you follow it thinking those are the rules, and then before you know where you are, you're in a divorce court and being traumatized. I then had another marriage, and that was relatively happy most until about the last 2 years, and then the official story is that we kind of grew apart. That's the official story. So we'll go with the official story, because there are still people who need to hear that. But as a result of that, so I had one marriage which was not a good fit for me. It was oil and water. I'm going to leave it at that. And then there was another marriage where it was oil and oil, or water and water, for about 13, 14 years. And then things stopped being quite so swimming, which meant that I eventually ended up a divorce for a second time, and with my entire world upside down. And I had become, as one does, domesticated, and found myself in as an expat in South Korea. And I'm telling you all this to tell you why I'm qualified to make the statements that I'm going to make after I've told you this. So at first I didn't know how to attract a partner, somebody just to, some companionship, a pleasant female romantic companionship. So I went down this breadcrumb trail and found myself reading various books and implementing various strategies to transform myself from, as one girlfriend said, a good husband but a terrible boyfriend, into a halfway decent boyfriend. Okay, and perhaps not quite such a good husband anymore. But the reason I'm able to say things like it's better to be with the wrong person, it's better to be alone than be with the wrong person, and a few statements I'm going to make in a moment, are that I went through a rarefied atmosphere, which is the expat atmosphere, where people come and go. And romances break up not because people stop being compatible with each other, but because of life circumstances. You are dating someone, and then you have your job in city A, in Changwon, and they decide that it's time for them to move on. They go off to Thailand, or they go off to another city because their contract comes to an end, and vice versa. So romances end not because there's a problem, and they end primarily because of social circumstance. And the other thing as well is, if you have the kind of mentality to be an expat, then you are fulfilling a lot of, the people you will meet also fulfill a lot of what it takes to be compatible with someone. You are fairly like-minded people, you are adventurous, and I'm not saying this is necessary to find the right partner. I'm saying that if you're an adventurous person, you need somebody who is adventurous. If you are somebody with the wanderlust, you need somebody who shares that and is prepared to go exploring other countries with you. Generally speaking, people in Korea, you have to have a degree, so there's a certain level of education, so you can discuss certain levels of ideas with people. Not always the case, but mostly the level of conversation is good, and so it's almost like slow speed dating. The people that you meet are already pre-qualified because they are quite similar to you in a lot of areas. So getting to the point, I had a lot of romances, and the one thing that I learned was that falling in love is a fairly common experience. I also learned that the concept of soulmates is very silly, and I'll explain that a lot tomorrow because we're approaching the 7-minute mark. And that not only is falling in love fairly commonplace, but so is having your heart broken in those circumstances. And the big benefit of that is, once you've had your heart broken 2 or 3 times because the person that you love has got to go off to another country, whether they like it or not, and you cannot follow them, then you find out that, in fact, the worst of it lasts 2, maybe 3 weeks. It's like a fever. And just as being in love is a fever, and it's all, again, down to chemicals, and a broken heart is down to chemicals, and it feels terrible at the time, but it's a normal, natural thing, just as, I'm going to compare it with getting the flu. In fact, the flu isn't as bad, obviously, because at the time, if your heart's broken, you feel awful. But because in normal life, in our day-to-day, normal, mundane, non-expat existences, falling in love and having your heart broken might happen only twice in your life, 3 times perhaps, maximum. You don't get that perspective. But if it happens to you like once every year and a half or something like that, or even more often, then that doesn't mean that you are a flirty sort of person, a bit of a butterfly. It means that chemicals are being triggered as they should, and that it's not an unexceptional experience. It's not nice, but at the same time, it's something which is to be expected. And after a while, by the time it's happened to you 3rd time in about 2 years, you start thinking, okay, I can distance myself from this. I can actually I can look at this dispassionately and know that it's, where are we today, the 15th or the 14th of September? By the 10th of October, I'm going to be feeling a lot better. And I'm not going to be blaming myself. I'm not going to be blaming her in my case, because I am attracted to females. But I'm not even going to blame life. This is how life is here. So that's number 1 insight. There's a lot to this, and we have to cover it all before we can go into how you can be happy on your own. Okay, nearing 10 minutes. We've gone over the 8 minutes mark, but we'll continue tomorrow. Okay. Good night. Bear it all in mind. Having a broken heart and feeling desolate, it's normal, and there is something you can do about it. We're going to get to that eventually.